It was supposed to be the happiest night of his life. Just 24 hours after marrying the woman he thought he'd spend forever with, he stood in a hotel hallway, still wearing his wedding band, trying to open the door to check on his parents. But he opened the wrong door. And in that single mistake, he saw something no husband should ever see. His new bride, in bed, with her best friend. By sunrise, he would be found dead, shot 13 times. What happened in that hotel room will leave you questioning how love can turn into something this dark, this fast. Before the tragedy that would shock everyone who knew them, there was love. Or at least, what looked like it. Michael and Tasha had what most people called the perfect relationship. They met 3 years earlier at a friend's birthday dinner in Atlanta. He was a quiet, hard-working entrepreneur building his small logistics company from the ground up. She was full of life, confident, charming, the kind of woman who drew attention without even trying. Their connection was instant. Within weeks, they were inseparable, taking road trips, sharing dreams, posting pictures that made them look like the couple everyone wanted to be. To the outside world, theirs was a love story destined for forever. But behind the filters and the smiles, there were cracks. Subtle things Michael noticed. The late-night calls, the inside jokes with her best friend, Kayla. The sudden changes in mood whenever he mentioned the future. He felt it in his gut. Something was off. But every time he asked, she'd laugh it off, call him insecure, and remind him how much she loved him. And like most people in love, he chose to believe her. In every love story, there's always a turning point, a quiet moment when the truth whispers, something isn't right. For Michael, that moment came long before the wedding. He just didn't listen. At first, it was small things. Late-night texts that made her smile, even when she tried to hide it. Phone calls that ended abruptly whenever he walked into the room. And the way her best friend, Kayla, seemed to be around all the time. They called each other sisters. They laughed too easily, hugged too long, whispered about things no one else could hear. Michael brushed it off. After all, he wanted to believe love was built on trust, not suspicion. But deep down, he felt it, that quiet ache in his chest that told him something wasn't right. He noticed the weekend trips Tasha said she was taking with the girls. He noticed the matching bracelets both women wore, identical, down to the smallest charm. And then one night, while they were out to dinner, he caught them exchanging a look, quick, intimate, almost guilty, the kind of look two people share when they're hiding something. Still, he said nothing, because sometimes love makes you blind. And Michael was blinded by the idea of forever. A few months before the wedding, things became harder to ignore. Tasha had started avoiding intimacy. She claimed she was stressed about the wedding, that she wanted everything to be perfect. But perfection doesn't make you distant. It doesn't make you flinch when your partner touches your hand. Michael tried to talk to her, calmly at first. She cried, said he was paranoid, said Kayla was just the only friend who truly understood her. He apologized and, once again, buried his instincts beneath love. But one evening, about 3 weeks before the wedding, everything changed. He came home early from work, earlier than expected. Tasha wasn't supposed to be home, but he found her car parked in the driveway, and another one, Kayla's, parked right behind it. The front door was locked, the curtains drawn. From the hallway, he heard laughter. Low, intimate, the kind that didn't sound like friendship. He froze for a moment, then knocked. Silence. When the door finally opened, Tasha looked startled, almost frightened. Kayla stood behind her, adjusting her clothes, avoiding eye contact. Michael asked what was going on. Tasha smiled, said they were just watching a movie, but her voice trembled, and her perfume mixed with something else he couldn't name. That night, he didn't sleep. Something inside him knew. This wasn't about stress or friendship or pre-wedding nerves. Something dark was happening. But love, even when wounded, tries to heal itself, and Michael convinced himself it was nothing, that maybe marriage would fix what was broken. He threw himself into the wedding preparations, determined to believe that vows could erase doubt. Tasha, meanwhile, seemed happier than ever. She posted pictures of her dress fitting, her bachelorette party, and right there, smiling beside her in every photo, was Kayla. Always Kayla. The night before the wedding, Michael and Tasha had dinner together in the hotel restaurant. She looked radiant, glowing under the soft lights. She told him she couldn't wait to start their new life together. He smiled back, pretending not to notice the way her phone kept lighting up, messages from a name she quickly hid. When they said goodnight, he kissed her forehead and whispered, "I love you." She hesitated, just for a second, before saying it back, and that hesitation would haunt him forever. The next day, they were married, in a small ceremony surrounded by friends and family. Laughter filled the air, tears of joy, the promise of forever. But behind those wedding smiles were secrets buried too deep to hide for long. And within just 24 hours, those secrets would explode in the most violent way imaginable. Because that night, inside a quiet hotel room, a wrong door would open and Michael's world would come crashing down.
The wedding was everything they had dreamed of. Beautiful, emotional, perfect, at least on the surface. Family toasted to love, friends danced under golden lights, and Michael couldn't stop smiling. He thought he had finally won, that all the doubts, all the fears, all those strange moments were behind them. He believed that night marked the start of their forever. But for Tasha, that night marked the beginning of her unraveling. After the reception, Michael had arranged hotel rooms for both families, his parents, her parents, and close friends. He wanted everyone together, close, safe, to celebrate the new chapter. He even joked that he wanted to keep his loved ones under one roof. He never imagined that decision would be his last act of kindness. The newlyweds checked into their suite on the third floor. Rose petals on the bed, champagne chilling on ice. They laughed, talked about their honeymoon, took photos for memory. But after midnight, Tasha said she felt dizzy, that she needed some air. Michael didn't argue. He trusted her. He kissed her cheek and said, "Don't be long." That was the last peaceful moment of his life. Around 1:30 a.m., Michael decided to check on his parents. He remembered that earlier that evening, he'd promised to drop off the spare key to their room just down the hall. Half asleep, still wearing his wedding ring, he stepped out quietly, not wanting to wake his new bride. The hallway was silent, only the hum of the air conditioner and the faint sound of city traffic below. He walked slowly, holding the spare key card, but in his tiredness, or maybe fate, he stopped at the wrong door, a door identical to his parents'. He slid the key card. The light flashed green, and the door unlocked. What he saw next shattered everything. Inside, the lights were dim, but not dark enough to hide what was happening. Tasha, his wife of just 24 hours, was in bed with Kayla. Not holding hands, not whispering secrets, but completely entangled, lost in a moment that had nothing to do with love, at least not the love he thought they shared. For a moment, he couldn't move. The world around him froze. He thought it was a nightmare, that maybe he'd walked into someone else's room. But then she turned, and their eyes met. Her expression wasn't guilt. It was fear. He stepped back, heart pounding, tears flooding his eyes. "How could you?" he whispered. "After everything?" Kayla jumped from the bed, covering herself, while Tasha scrambled for words, any words. But silence hung heavier than screams. Michael didn't yell. He didn't hit. He didn't curse. He just walked out, quietly, like a man whose heart had just been ripped from his chest. He went back to his suite, but she followed. A heated argument erupted, muffled through the walls. Neighbors later told police they heard shouting, a door slam, then silence. For about an hour, there was nothing. Until gunshots. 13 shots, echoing down the hallway. By the time hotel security arrived, Michael was lying near the doorway, lifeless, his wedding band still glinting under the hall light. Tasha was crying hysterically, claiming it was an accident. But the gun, registered to Michael, told a different story. And Kayla was gone. The investigation would reveal more than anyone expected. A tangled web of lies, passion, and manipulation that had been building long before the wedding. Because what happened that night wasn't spontaneous, it was planned. And as police began to dig deeper into Tasha's relationship with Kayla and the secrets buried in their past, one question haunted everyone who knew Michael. Was his death really an accident, or the ending they'd written for him all along?
When officers arrived at the hotel, the scene was chaos. Guests crowded the hallways. Security staff tried to hold back onlookers. And in the middle of it all sat Tasha, still in her wedding dress, smeared with blood and mascara, shaking uncontrollably. Michael's body lay a few feet away, motionless. 13 shell casings were scattered near the doorway, a brutal reminder of how love can turn deadly in seconds. The first officer on scene asked the only question that mattered. What happened here? Tasha looked up, eyes wide, tears streaming. She whispered, "He tried to hurt me. I had to protect myself." But from the moment she said it, something about her story didn't add up. Detectives arrived within the hour. They photographed the scene, collected evidence, and bagged the weapon, a 9mm pistol registered under Michael's name. The gunpowder residue was on her hands, and the angle of the bullets told another story. He hadn't been advancing. He had been stepping back. 13 shots. Most of them fired from less than 6 feet away. That wasn't self-defense. That was rage. At the police station, Tasha repeated her story that Michael found out about her affair, lost control, and attacked her. But when detectives examined her, they found no bruises, no scratches, no signs of struggle. Just one faint mark on her wrist, and even that didn't match her version of events. Then came the first twist. Hotel surveillance footage showed Kayla leaving through the back stairwell just minutes after the gunshots. She wasn't there when police arrived. She didn't call for help. She didn't even check if her best friend was alive. She simply disappeared. Detectives began to dig into their lives. Texts, emails, financial records, everything. What they found painted a picture darker than anyone expected. 2 weeks before the wedding, Tasha had taken out a life insurance policy on Michael, worth $500,000. The beneficiary? Kayla. Friends of the couple told investigators that Kayla had always been a little too close. She attended every event, traveled with them, even stayed at their home sometimes to help with wedding plans. But underneath it all was a secret relationship, one that had been going on for nearly 2 years. Detectives discovered dozens of hidden messages between the two women, coded, careful, and cold. They discussed Michael's growing suspicions. They talked about getting free. And in one chilling exchange just days before the wedding, Kayla texted, "Once he's out of the way, it's just us." Tasha replied, "Forever." It became clear the wedding wasn't a celebration of love. It was a setup, a disguise, an event built to mask an unspeakable plan. The motive? Money, freedom, and a toxic, obsessive love that blurred every moral line. When police finally tracked down Kayla 3 days later, she was hiding at a friend's apartment across town. She claimed she had no idea what happened that night, said she left before the shooting and didn't hear gunfire until later. But her phone told a different story. Her GPS pinged at the hotel at the exact time of the shooting. And one message, never deleted, sent seconds before the first gunshot read, "He knows. Do it before he does something." Detectives stared at the text, stunned. It was the final piece of the puzzle. Proof that the murder wasn't spontaneous. It was premeditated. The love story that began with laughter and promises ended with betrayal and bullets. The woman who vowed to love Michael till death do us part. She made sure death came quickly. But as the case headed to trial, one final secret would emerge. A shocking truth that neither Tasha nor Kayla ever expected to surface. A secret buried in Michael's past that could change everything about what really happened that night. Because sometimes, the victim isn't as innocent as he seems.
Just when everyone thought the case was clear, that Michael was an innocent man betrayed by the two people he trusted most, a single discovery would turn the entire investigation on its head. During pre-trial preparation, detectives combed through Michael's personal devices for final evidence. On his laptop, tucked away in a hidden folder labeled June, they found a collection of files that would change everything. Screenshots of messages, wire transfers, and photographs of a woman no one in Michael's family had ever seen before. Her name was June Harris, a 26-year-old nurse's assistant from another city. She wasn't just some random acquaintance. She was someone deeply connected to Michael, someone who claimed to know a side of him his wife and the entire world had never seen before. When investigators contacted her, June didn't hesitate. She came forward with a calm but devastating revelation. Michael had been living a double life. She said they had been together for almost 8 months, long before Michael's wedding to Tasha. In her own words, "He told me I was his piece, that the wedding wasn't real love, it was an arrangement." And then she said something that froze the entire investigation. June was pregnant, and she claimed Michael was the father. Detectives verified the pregnancy. The timeline matched. And there, in that moment, the image of a perfect, faithful husband began to collapse. Prosecutors now had a new problem. If Michael wasn't as innocent as he seemed, if he'd been deceiving both women, then what really happened in that hotel room? Was it truly an act of cold-blooded murder, or the violent unraveling of a love triangle gone wrong? The truth about Michael's secret life blurred every line: love, betrayal, guilt, and rage, until no one could tell who was the victim and who was the villain. Because sometimes the dead leave behind more than memories. Sometimes they leave behind secrets. And this one was just beginning to surface. June Harris was not the type of woman you'd expect to find at the center of a murder investigation. Quiet, composed, and soft-spoken, she didn't fit the picture of scandal or deceit. But as detectives sat across from her in that small cafe on the edge of town, every word she spoke peeled back another layer of the man they thought they knew. According to June,
Her relationship with Michael began nearly 8 months before his wedding. They met at a charity fundraiser through mutual friends, and from that night on, they were inseparable. She described him as charming, protective, and ambitious, the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. But there was a darker truth beneath the romance. June claimed that Michael had told her his marriage to Tasha wasn't about love, it was about image and money. He said he needed stability, a partnership that would help his business grow, and that once things were settled, he would end it. He told her to just give him time. She believed him. But everything changed the moment she saw wedding pictures of Michael and Tasha flood social media, smiling, dancing, kissing, just hours after he had told her he loved her. She said it felt like being hit by a train. Her calls were unanswered. Her texts were ignored. Until, out of nowhere, on the night of his death, Michael reached out. June told detectives he had called her around 11:40 p.m., his voice low and trembling. He said he was at a hotel. He said he had found out the truth, and then he said something she'd never forget. "You were right about her." Those were his final words before the line went dead. When investigators checked phone records, it was confirmed. Michael had indeed called June less than 2 hours before his body was found. That call and what was said during it became a key turning point in the case. Because now the timeline didn't add up. The idea that Michael accidentally opened the wrong door no longer seemed so certain. Had he gone to that room by mistake? Or was he already looking for something or someone he knew he'd find? As June's story spread through the courtroom, the public perception shifted. The faithful husband, the heartbroken bride, the loyal best friend. None of them looked the same anymore, because every person in this story had something to hide. After June's revelation, detectives returned to the hotel's surveillance footage, determined to piece together the final hours of Michael's life. But what they found didn't just raise questions, it exposed a chilling mystery that no one could explain. At 11:42 p.m., security footage showed Michael stepping out of his room on the 4th floor. He was wearing casual clothes, no jacket, no shoes, just his phone in hand. Investigators first assumed he was on his way to check on his parents, who were staying down the hall. But when they tracked his movements on camera, Michael never made it there. Instead, the footage cut off at the end of the corridor, and for the next 15 minutes, Michael disappeared completely from every camera in the building. No one saw him enter the stairwell. No one saw him use the elevator. No one saw him approach his parents' door. He was simply gone. At 11:57 p.m., the cameras picked him up again, this time walking toward the wrong hotel room, the one belonging to Tasha and Kayla, the room where he'd make the mistake that would cost him his life. Those 15 missing minutes became the single most haunting gap in the entire investigation. What happened during that time? Where did Michael go? And why did he look so agitated when he finally reappeared? Detectives started to dig deeper. Phone data revealed that during that 15-minute gap, Michael had received 2 text messages, both deleted moments later. Forensic recovery showed partial fragments. "You think I don't know? You lied again." And then one final draft message never sent. "I'm ending this tonight." The tone was angry, controlled, final. It didn't sound like a man planning to check on his parents. It sounded like someone on his way to confront betrayal head-on. And when investigators cross-referenced the hotel Wi-Fi log, the truth became harder to ignore. Michael's phone had connected to Tasha's room router 8 minutes before he entered the door, meaning he had already been standing nearby, listening, waiting. So now the question changed. Did Michael really accidentally walk into that room? Or had he gone there on purpose, ready for a confrontation that spiraled out of control? The narrative of a tragic mistake was starting to crumble, and what came next would destroy any illusion of innocence left on either side. Because the truth behind those missing 15 minutes would reveal just how far love, betrayal, and rage can push a human soul.
The hotel room where Michael died had been sealed off for days. Crime scene tape stretched across the doorway like a final warning. Inside, the air was still heavy with chaos. Broken glass, blood on the carpet, a shattered mirror near the bed. 13 shell casings scattered like fallen memories, each one telling its own story. For weeks, investigators had tried to piece together what happened in that room. Both Tasha and Kayla claimed it was an accident, that Michael burst in, enraged, screaming, threatening to hurt them. They said the gun went off during the struggle. But the forensic evidence said otherwise. The pattern of the bullets, the distance of the shots, the direction of the wounds all told a different story. Michael had been standing still near the door when the first bullet struck him in the chest. The second hit his shoulder. The third, his throat. And as he fell, 10 more followed. 13 bullets, each one fired deliberately. Each one meant to make sure he would never get back up. When detectives confronted Tasha with the forensic results, she broke down. Her tears fell, but her story remained the same, that it was self-defense, that Michael had found out about her affair and that he'd come there to kill them both. But what no one expected was Kayla's confession. After days of interrogation, she admitted the truth. It wasn't Michael who brought the gun that night. It was Tasha. Kayla claimed Tasha had been spiraling for weeks, afraid that Michael had discovered their secret and would ruin her life. She said Tasha brought the gun for protection, but when Michael burst through that door, everything snapped. According to Kayla, Tasha fired the first shot without thinking, then the next, then another, until the room fell silent, and Michael's body lay motionless on the floor.
When police asked why she fired 13 times, Tasha whispered, "Because I couldn't make him stop looking at me." The courtroom went silent when that statement was read aloud. By then, the jury had already heard the affair, the deceit, the secrets, but this was the breaking point. There was no accident, no struggle, just rage, guilt, and the sound of 13 bullets tearing through what was once called love. And when the verdict finally came, justice felt hollow. Tasha was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Kayla received 25 years for her role in helping cover up the crime. But even as the gavel came down, one question still lingered in the hearts of everyone who followed the case. Was this truly justice, or just the final act in a story where everyone had already lost? Because in that hotel room, 3 lives ended that night. Michael lost his breath. Tasha lost her freedom, and Kayla lost her soul. And yet, somewhere in the silence that followed those 13 gunshots, the truth about love, betrayal, and obsession still echoes, reminding us all how easily devotion can become destruction.
Years have passed since that tragic wedding night. Yet the echoes of that story still haunt everyone who ever knew them. The hotel where it happened has changed owners, the room number reassigned. But those who were there that night say they still can't walk past it without feeling the weight of something unfinished, something broken. Tasha Monroe, now inmate number 44317, is serving her life sentence at a women's correctional facility upstate. In her first televised interview, her voice trembled as she said, "If I could take it back, I would have told him the truth. Maybe he'd still be alive. Maybe I'd still have a future." She claims she never meant to kill Michael, that fear and shock took over when the door opened. But her eyes told a different story. It was guilt, deep, consuming guilt, the kind that follows you even in silence. Inside prison, Tasha spends most of her days working in the chapel, the same woman who once stood in white lace promising forever. Now she folds birch bulletins and writes apology letters that never get sent. Letters to Michael's parents, letters to Kayla, and letters to a child who will never be born. Kayla, on the other hand, has struggled to adjust behind bars. She keeps mostly to herself, withdrawn, often lost in thought. In one of her rare interviews, she admitted something that sent chills down the spine of the journalist who spoke to her. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," she said. "He wasn't the only one keeping secrets." When pressed on what she meant, Kayla refused to explain. But later, investigators discovered that Kayla had been recording private conversations with Tasha weeks before the wedding. Voice notes filled with jealousy, obsession, and emotional control. It painted a picture of a friendship that had already turned toxic long before Michael ever walked through that door. So maybe it wasn't just a story of betrayal between a husband and a wife. Maybe it was a story of two women bound by obsession, envy, and fear, who created a storm neither could survive. Michael's family never recovered. His mother still visits his grave every Sunday. His father moved away, unable to bear the memories. And on the stone that marks his final resting place, 5 words are engraved. Forever wasn't meant for everyone. It's a story that began with love and ended in tragedy. A reminder that trust, once broken, can shatter even the purest of hearts. And that sometimes the most dangerous secrets aren't the ones we hide from others, but the ones we hide from ourselves. If you think you've heard it all, think again, because behind every perfect love story, there's a truth waiting to be uncovered. Subscribe to Crime Vault, where every story reveals the darkness behind human desire, and every episode reminds us that in the end, love can kill.